This is the fifth in a series that we're doing at the moment on the whole idea of being at peace. The first week we looked at the idea that in order to be at peace, our very being needs to be at peace. That really sets the context for our peacefulness. We can't control the chaos in the world. We can only bring ourselves into the peace of the present moment and then deal with each moment from a perspective of peace when it arrives. And then in the second week, we looked at the chaos that's going on in the world and the lack of peace there, and explored that the way that human consciousness has evolved to a point where the smartness of our technology is not going to help us as we strive for a more peaceful world. What's needed now is not technological advancement, but the development of a wisdom to see the true nature of reality and respond to that. And Heather did actually find this piece from Thomas Merton that really sort of sums it up. Merton says, I believe we're going to have to prepare ourselves for the difficult and patient task, and he wrote this in the 50s really, of outgrowing rigid and intransigent nationalism and work slowly towards a world federation of peaceful nations. How will this be possible? Don't ask me, I don't know. But unless we develop a moral, spiritual, and political wisdom that's appropriate to our technological skill, our skill may end us. So there's that idea that more skill and technology is not what's needed, but a more developed wisdom is what's appropriate, the development of wisdom to see the true nature of reality and respond to that appropriately. And it's really through the ethical, moral, and spiritual development, I think, that we'll survive. And then we looked at truth in our age, the age where we have alternative facts. And in the last one, we looked at resting in peace, being at peace with our death while we're still alive, and therefore being at peace with life and having death with us on the journey. Now, if you want to catch up on any of those, the little red card in front of you there, you can just pick that up and it shows you how to do that. If you want to be on our mailing list, the little blue card will help you do that. So this series is called Being at Peace, and I think it's worth looking at the stages, and this is what I want to do today, looking at the stages of the journey towards peace in our consciousness. The states that we inhabit as we go towards that what Jesus called that peace that passes all understanding. Because I think we can be aware of them, those different stages, as they're happening. This is only really relevant if we're on the journey towards peace. If that's not our goal, then there are all sorts of different states that we can be in. But if we're on the journey towards peace, I'm suggesting there are a number of states that we can identify and recognize where we are on that journey towards peace. And I want to use meditation as a context for this initially, because I think it makes it quite clear. So in this context, I'd like to say there are 4 different stages as we go towards peace. The first stage is the ideal state, and that is our aim in meditation. And our ideal state is to be completely absorbed in the present moment. When we're completely absorbed in the present moment, then we're totally at peace, experiencing then the peace that passes all understanding. As Meister Eckhart said this before, the 14th century mystic said, wanting for nothing. When you're in that state of peace, you want for nothing. Willing nothing, not trying to make anything happen. And knowing nothing. You're not trying to get your head around what's going on. You're just totally at peace. That is the pure meditative state. And when you're fully immersed in that present moment, you're not thinking about anything else. You're just being. just like the skier who's in the zone as they balance their way down the mountain, or the great artist, or the tennis player, or the musician. They've let go of everything else, and they're just being in the moment. So that's the first stage of being. The next stage of being is to be in the moment, but being aware of it at the same time. In meditation, how it works in meditation in this particular state is that we're thinking, yes, how great. I'm in the present moment at the moment. I'm just being present. I could not be more present than I am right now. I am present bigly. Present is moi. Je suis présent. And your mind just glorifies in how present you are. We're in the present, you are, but it's a sort of second level of awareness as we're trying to hold on to that moment. But it takes, that awareness takes us out of the zone of being. Because you're thinking, yeah, I am present. That's amazing. So that's a second level. We've got the present moment, which is the first level. Then being aware of the present moment, which is the second level. And the third level comes when we comment to ourselves on being in the present moment. In meditation, it's when we think, I'm in the present moment and I am communing with God. I am part of the universe, being conscious of itself. I am making my contribution to the good of all. Or am I? Is this real? What am I doing here? Suddenly you're in this sort of dialogue of beingness and trying to work out, how being you are or what that being is. And, what happens is that we actually go off on one, and the likelihood is we either come back to being or we lose it and find that we're totally in our thoughts, 10 minutes later. So that's the third stage. So being aware of being, commenting on being, and the last state we inhabit in this whole stage is what I would call being off with the fairies. That's the last state, being off with the fairies. This is when in meditation we've totally lost it and find ourselves thinking about lunch or the television program we saw, or we find ourselves organizing our day and doing a to-do list, or worrying about our tax return. At that moment, we have lost any semblance that we're undertaking sacred work, and the mind has completely taken over. In meditation, sometimes I get, great ideas in this phase. And the temptation is to say, this is such a great idea, I'm going to go with it. But you just let it go. And you have to just completely let it go. And then when you finish your meditation, if it's still there, you just write it down. I always have a pad next to me. But there's no point in being off with the fairies. You might as well be lying on the couch and thinking about something else. And, all these phases of being, if you're not looking for peace or going for that, spiritual development and going towards that peace that passes, this means nothing. There are lots of other stages. But this is the journey towards peace. They're all states in relationship to a commitment to being rather than anything else. And they all enable us, these states, to correct, to let go, and refocus once we become aware of them. To some extent, each of these phases has its own use. It's like a target with, there's inner and outer rings, with pure being the bullseye. But in each case, it's the target we're aiming for. And when the arrow lands, it shows us where we are in relationship to our state of being. And to some extent, meditation is a good way of looking at it, because there are many similarities. Meditation is really, as I said a couple of weeks ago, meditation really is our mind dying into the present moment, letting go of who we think we are and just being. And that's very similar to the whole journey towards death, which is one of letting go of our identity, letting go who we are. So it is a metaphor for life. When we're in a state of pure being, we've died to everything else. We have those great ideas, and all that sort of business, but we've died to that. But if we start, being aware of it, or we start commenting on it, or off with the fairies, then it's a completely different state. We've died to any idea that there might be something to be gained from meditation as we let go of our ideas about meditation. And we've even died to the awareness of being in meditation as we exist in that pure state of being. Now, that may sound impossible to get to, that pure state of being, but it's not. Because we die to each state of awareness as it continues to exist, but we still let go of it. When we find ourselves, which we do often, in meditation, off with the fairies, thinking about lunch or whatever it is, we let go of the thoughts we're having and we become again aware of ourselves in our meditation and the benefits of staying in the process. And therefore, you just move to the next stage. We let go then of thinking about those benefits and just become aware of our being. And then we let go of that. We consciously let go of being aware of our being and just come into the zone. Now, the truth is, we cannot stop ourselves thinking about anything. I'll do a little test just to prove it to you. Okay, don't think of pink elephants. No, don't. Don't think of pink, hairy, big pink elephants. You can't not. You can't stop yourself thinking about anything. Similarly, in letting go of the awareness of being, that when you're thinking yourself, here I am in my meditation, I'm very much aware of being in the meditation. In letting go of that, the sense of that is still there. But we've taken ourselves to a different place where we can simply be with that and watch that going on while it's going on. So at each stage, we're just aware of it. When we're off with the fairies, we just let that go. And then we allow ourselves to move into the next stage, which is being aware of ourselves, thinking about our meditation, how good it is. And then we just let go of that, and we are aware of ourselves being. And then we let go of that, and all those other bits are still there. But what we don't do is entertain them. We stay with a sense, just like when sometimes you're meditating and you've got your eyes open, you've got an unfocused gaze. And similarly, your mind, when it is holding that state of being, is unfocused on all the other things that are there, but they still exist. You don't have to totally get rid of everything. You just have to not entertain them. Very like death, we're letting go of our entire personality and just giving ourselves and our energy into the present moment. We are giving ourselves with no expectation of return, but our whole being is love, and giving that love to all of creation, as we do when we die. In death, we just give ourselves over. It may sound a bit abstract, but it certainly does pertain to the way that we live our lives in that peace. There's a great little verse from the Tai Te Ching which says, "The mark of a moderate man is freedom from his own ideas, tolerant like the sky, all-pervading like sunlight, firm like a mountain, supple like a tree in the wind. He has no destination in view and makes use of anything life happens to bring his way. Nothing is impossible for him because he's let go." That is the state of pure being in life. And the key to the state of pure being in life is letting go of outcomes. In meditation, we're attached to our mind, to our thoughts. In life, we're attached to outcomes. We're attached to what's going to happen, how I'm going to work it all out. He has no destination in view and makes use of anything life happens to bring his way. Nothing is impossible for him because he's let go. Just as we let go in meditation, the way to peace in life is letting go of expectation and outcomes. We continually die to what is. This is Byron Katie's whole ministry, realizing what is and dying to it. We don't hold on to our grand ideas as to what our lives might amount to. Those grand ideas of what our lives might amount to is the equivalent of being off with the fairies. We're just entertaining all these thoughts. We don't have thoughts about the good that we're doing in our lives. You know, how great the work that we're doing. That's the equivalent of commenting ourselves in meditation about the practice. You know, we don't comment on ourselves about, how what we're doing in our lives is really having a good effect. And the equivalent to that is making comments about how good we're doing in meditation. We don't even think about how spiritual we're being, which is the equivalent in meditation of being aware of the process of meditation. We just be with whatever's happening. And the idea of making use of anything life happens to bring our way is also incredibly important. The grist for our mill is the circumstances that come to us in our lives. And we often see how things just present themselves. Those of you here last week, we had Andrew and Edie, who were confirmed in the service last week. Now, their parents came to me in about February and said, look, I like, my kids to be confirmed in the chapel. And I thought, how great. That's what we can do at Easter. And it just presented itself. And then Easter happened and they were perfect for the Easter service. And it's just allowing things to happen. Heather gave me that reading from Thomas Merton this morning. And you just go with what is going on. Readings often come to me like that before a talk. And like the Tao Te Ching, the reading that I used at the beginning of this passage, that came to me last week. And when we let the path, the idea is to let the path unfold in front of us. Then we're walking the path that is set before us. That is what we're asked to do without worrying about the outcome. And that's not to say that we shouldn't aspire. Yeah, of course we must aspire to do well, to get things to happen, because those thoughts have also come to us. But the trick is not to be wedded to the outcomes. Not to be worried about what's going to happen. And like in meditation, we notice our thoughts, we notice our disappointments, we notice the desire to be good or to be spiritual or to be noticed, and we just let go of them and let them be, but not entertain them or dwell on them. We are then at peace with what comes our way. It's a discipline, as is meditation. We discipline ourselves to be with what is, not to look back, not to look forward. And if we don't look forward, if we do look forward, we hold it lightly and we let go of it, which means we're ready to play in the moment. That's really what this allows us to do. It allows us to fully engage with the moment. That great quote from Hamlet. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. And then the key line, the readiness is all. The readiness. That's the key. That's the key to peace, is just to be ready. When we're truly in the moment, we are ready for whatever comes our way, good or bad. And there is deep peace in that. That is the peace that passes all understanding, a peace that comes from a trust that we each have, and this is what we trust in, we each have a unique relationship with the universe. And our role is to participate with the universe so as to bring more love from ourselves into the world. It's not about being comfortable. It is about knowing that we can deal with whatever comes our way and make love out of that circumstance. That is the deep secret at the heart of life. And it's the secret that brings peace, to be able to use whatever comes our way. Now, I thought I'd end today with just a little go at meditation and see if you can identify those 4 stages. So, are you up for just a little go? It's not going to take very long, but it just gives you a go. So if you'd like to close your eyes a bit. Now, chances are, right at the beginning, we're all off with the fairies. Notice that. Notice that you're thinking about what's going on, how long is this going? Whatever those thoughts are, you're off with the fairies. And now, come to what we're about. Let go of that and come to what we're about, which is we are about meditation here. And we're in that stage, well, I'm thinking about meditation. This is a good thing. I like the idea of meditation. Notice what we're doing in meditation. Centering ourselves, bringing ourselves to a place of peace. Now let go of that. And just be with your breath. Notice yourself being with your breath. Being aware of being with your breath. And now let go of that and just be. Aware of all the other things, but coming from a place of being that does not entertain them. They're there but out of focus. And notice when you slip out of that and end up being in one of the other states, either being with your breath or commenting on what you're doing or thinking about the reception. And just bring yourself back to that slightly out of focus awareness of being. So I always like to give people an opportunity just to come back at me, to ask any questions, or to share an experience, or to disagree with anything that has been said. Or we just may have a couple of minutes of silence, which we will, I'm not attached to the outcome. So, yes, Tom. We use the microphone so that people can hear at home.
Do you, when you're meditating,
yeah,
do you try to stay purely in, as much as you can, obviously within the 4 stages, in being, or do you try to create something as well, or envision, or manifest, or any of those kinds of things for you? What do you do?
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, what I tend to do is I'm quite Calvinistic about this. That, I think the pure state of being is the place to be. I do also realize that a lot of the material that I get from in services does tend to come to me while I'm doing meditation. So part of me is open to that. But if I do get an idea, I'm quite diligent about letting that go and coming back to just that pure state of being. And, I'm fine. I'm in that pure state of being, and then I'll move to just being aware of it. And then I'll start commenting, and then I'll be... Sometimes I do find myself off with the fairies, then gradually, but I find it quite useful to bring myself back constantly to that pure state of being. One thing I sometimes do is make a decision not to miss a single breath. And the good thing about that, although it does force you almost to be aware of your being, it just keeps you in that present moment constantly by just being in that pure state of being, just aware of your breathing and it keeps you not going into the other states. And I find that quite useful. That's what how I tend to do that.
Also, isn't it the case in your practice that you have an hour or whatever it is, but you divide it up so that for 20 minutes you completely are committed to the breath or whatever, but then you go into something else and then you might jot it down. But like you're quite organised, aren't you? Your hour.
Yeah, it's like a long jump. I take 10 minutes. My first 10 minutes. And actually, we are starting a meditation class next Tuesday at 8:30 to 9:30. It's in that little leaflet. So if you're interested in that. But I have 10 minutes to get myself sorted out. And in that 10 minutes, I let anything go on that needs to go on. And I let that run. And just let it go. And then after that 10 minutes, I stop that. And then I then do another 5 minutes where I just check in with my body. So I check fully in with all parts of my body. So I take 15 minutes. And then I do 30 minutes of silent meditation where I'm really going for it. And then after that, I do 5 minutes of just being aware of that concept of divinity and linking in with that. And then I have a book to read, and I do 5 minutes of whatever I'm reading. I'm reading Etty Hillesum at the moment, which I have to read, because it's doing the thing, and I have to get to the end of it. So I do literally 5 minutes of reading a spiritual book, which is great, because it prompts me. And then I do 10 minutes of thinking about prayer. I think about, people that need prayer in the world and all the stuff that's going on. And I read a bit from the Old Testament, a bit from the New Testament during that bit. And since I watched the Holdovers, I now do one passage of Marcus Aurelius right at the end of it now. I'm gradually getting through Marcus Aurelius. So I end with Marcus Aurelius, and that's how it goes. Thank you. Okay, anybody else like to make a comment or ask a question or share an experience? Yes, Catherine. Lovely to have you here, Catherine, by the way.
I have a question about the senses when you're meditating,
yeah.
When any of us are meditating, how sort of music, for instance, audio, if you have that in the background or if you want complete silence, what have you heard, your experience and others, that's helpful? When I hear the piano, I just sort of melt into a state, probably not a pure state of meditation, but then you're not focusing on the breath, you're focusing on that auditory sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, just wanted to talk about the senses.
Well, two things. I think it does give me an opportunity just to say again that the reason we have music in our services is really to set a tone. After I've spoken or someone's spoken, to have the music that Frank plays just allows you just to be with whatever's been said and to let it go into you. And I think, if you're going to use music, in England, we used to go into what we used to call head shops in England, which have all the sort of materials in them. But they always have what we used to call plinky-plonk music, which is sort of really sort of obscure piano music. But I think it's okay to focus on that just as much as your breath, because it is a point of focus. But for me, I tend to, sound does come in. And touch does come in. I feel something. But what I tend to do is again, let go of that. And just come back to that diffused being with what is going on. But there's no right way. There's no right way to do meditation at all. I think one gets led in meditation. I started out doing 3 minutes looking at a candle. And I gradually just developed it. It's not my method of meditation is completely self-taught. It's not, there's no traditional or anything like that. I think it's completely okay to do that. I don't do it every day. I do it 5 days a week, and I think one finds the balance. Some people have the balance like that. I'm probably over here, and whatever. There's an old sort of Christian expression which is pray as you can, not as you can't, and it's like meditate as you can. Not as you can't. Did you want to say something?
Well, I just think the important thing is figuring out what is most conducive to you personally, what works, and by trial and error, coming across a practice that totally resonates, something you can get traction with, and then committing to that. I mean, for me, mine is centering prayer, and I just find that that's where I've been able to develop a committed way of doing meditation. But at another time, I'll listen to music and I'll have a music-based meditation. But it's but not to mix the two up is how I go about it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes. There we are. Camille.
I would call it self-hypnosis. As a clinical hypnotherapist, to really count yourself down, 10, 9, 8, and the mind just clears. I also see colors. It's a color wheel that's brighter and then darkens.
Yeah. But I do think it's a great link between meditation and real life. You know, meditation is real life, I want to say. I think meditation is, it's not it is a practice, but it's real life as well. But, you know, the way that we live is a great metaphor, meditation, for the way that we live. So I think that's true as well. Okay, anybody else?